Hi, Tony Pileggi here again. This is part 2 of degreeing the camshaft. Now, we've set up in the part 1, we set up our degree wheel. So when it rotates around and the pointer hits at top dead center, we are at what we call true top dead center. Now, what we've got set up here is a dial gauge, and we've set it up on the intake valve. So what we have, which you can't see, is the lifter, and that is sitting right on the cam lobe, and our push rod, which you can see there, and our dial gauge. So as this lifter is going up and down, when that intake valve opens and closes, we're going to see that on the dial gauge. And when it's open, it's going to push this lifter up, because that lifter is sitting right on the nose of this cam lobe. So there's the cam lobe there. Here, if it's rotating clockwise, this is our opening ramp, this is our closing ramp, and between here and there, that valve is going to be closed. It's closed on the base and up the side, the two sides here, until we hit our opening and closing ramps. So in this scenario here, this valve is closed. It would be closed in that scenario there, and then in this position here would be closed. This would be fully open, which would give us what we call max lift. And this is one of the things that we're going to be looking at. Now, as in theory class, we talked about SAE, Society of Automotive Engineers. They set a standard of 6 thou to when we calculate our duration of our intake valve or our exhaust valve. And then you have advertised duration, and typically it's 50 thou, but that is the decision of the manufacturer of that can. But pretty much the majority of them, you're going to see them at 50 thou. But what this means is, here is our valve, and let's say my hand is the cylinder head. So right now, this valve is shut tight. Now, as soon as this valve comes off its seat, we're gonna check our duration at 6 thou, 6 thou of an inch. We are now going to start counting crankshaft degrees using our degree wheel. So what's going to happen is we'll hit 6 thou, and we'll see that on our dial gauge, and you'll see it there in a second. And then it'll keep rotating, and that valve is going to fully open to our max lift, and then the dial gauge will come back around the opposite way, and when it comes back to 6 thou, we will stop rotating the engine and then take another reading off our dial gauge, and that is going to give us when our intake valve opens, when it closes. We will figure out our duration, and we'll show you how to do that. So, I don't know where I'm at with this intake valve, so I'm just going to keep rotating here. I'm going to get the intake valve to completely open and close. Right now, I know that it's closed because nothing's happening here, so I'm just going to dial this into 0 there. Now, every rotation is 1/100 thou of an inch. So we actually have 100 little dots all the way around. If this goes 2 rotations, that's 200 thou of lift. Okay, so the intake valve is opening. The intake valve reaches maximum lift, and you'll see it's going to come back down. And I'm just going to, okay, so let me rotate that again. And I'm going through the other strokes. And here we go. Now, I want to stop at 6 thou. And you can see I'm at 6 thou there because we're using SAE standards. Now I can look on my degree wheel and say, okay, remember, this degree wheel is going clockwise. I haven't hit top dead center yet. My piston's not right at top dead center yet. So I'm going to see this valve starts to open at 15 degrees before top dead center, because there's top dead center there. But when I turn back, I'm at 6 thou, right there. I am 15 degrees before top dead center. So let me break this on here. So this intake valve opens up at 15 degrees before top dead center. Okay? So that's when that valve is open. Now, we're going to rotate this till we get to maximum lift. So, watch the dial gauge. 1 revolution. 2 revolutions. And that's where it stops. And I am reading about 79. So, I made 1 revolution, 2 revolutions, and I actually did 79. If I add these 3 up, I'm 279 thou. That is my maximum lift. So this valve came off at seat 0.279 of an inch, and that's maximum lift. That lifter is sitting right on the top of that nose there. Okay? The other thing I want to know is where on crankshaft rotation did I get maximum lift? And if I look at my pointer, I'm at 120 degrees. So my max lift is at 120 degrees. And I can even put that on our diagram there. Now, as I continue to rotate, the valve is going to close. And it's going to show that because now a dial gauge is going back the opposite way. There's my 79. 1 rotation. And here's my last rotation. Because we started counting at 6 thou, I am going to stop at 6 thou, right there. Now, let's look at the degree wheel and see where we are. Now remember, this is top dead center. At 180 degrees is bottom dead center. With us rotating this way, we've already passed bottom dead center. So I am going to count backwards. So this is 0, and I'm going to count back 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70. I'm going to call that 80. 80 degrees. So this valve closed at 80 degrees after bottom dead center, right there. My intake valve opened at 15 degrees before top dead center, and it closed at 80 degrees after bottom dead center. So now let's figure out what our duration is. We've got 15 degrees, so from here to here is 15 degrees. Then you've got 180 degrees, so there's the 15. There's the 80 degrees. And now we got, let's add the 80 inside there. Okay, so if we add this up, so there's our 15, our 180, and our 80 is right there. So our duration here, if we add that up, that's 5, 16, 17, 275 degrees of crankshaft rotation is our valve duration for our intake valve. We know what our maximum lift is, okay? We know when it happens at 120 degrees of crankshaft rotation. Now, the only thing that is going to change our lift is our rocker arm ratio. And if we haven't talked about it yet in class, we will. Okay, so our rocker arm ratio will increase that lift, but we are looking strictly at the cam load. So if you have your cam card, you can compare this. Now, if we did it at 50 thou, this is exactly the same camshaft, but we can do it at 50 thou, but we're going to end up with different numbers, which is okay because our starting point is different. The thing to remember is that if you're going from one camshaft to another, you have to compare apples with apples. So if our duration is 275 degrees of crankshaft rotation at 6 thou, then if I'm comparing it to another camshaft, I also need to compare it at 6 thou and see what our duration is. Okay? So thanks very much.